It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Betsy McFarland. Betsy is the Vice President of the HSUS Companion Animals section, where she leads a variety of programs aimed at empowering people and communities to provide quality care for companion animals. Since joining the HSUS in 1998, Betsy has developed and grown multiple programs aimed at keeping pets in homes and increasing adoption of pets from shelters and rescues, including the Pets for Life program, which brings spay, neuter, and other critical services to underserved communities, and the Shelter Pet Project, a national advertising campaign with the Ad Council and Maddie's Fund to promote pet adoption. She has provided direct assistance to hundreds of animal shelters, humane organizations, and other agencies in handling various animal care and protection issues, and oversees Animal Care Expo, the largest conference for animal welfare professionals, attracting more than 2,000 attendees from 47 countries every year. We're getting towards that, guys, aren't we? Nearly 2,000? Yeah? Betsy possesses a broad communications background, including website development, book publishing, and media outreach. She has particular interest and experience in engaging and managing volunteers and has published research on the topic. And you can find her full biography in the delegate booklet. So please put your hands together and welcome Betsy.
Good morning. Thank you, Jane. That was so nice. How's everybody doing? You got plenty of coffee and caffeine in you to get started this morning? We're on early. Good to see you guys. So see, I think you are growing much more towards Animal Care Expo. You guys will be there before you know it. We started small too. So let me see if I can find the clicker. Here it is. So I'm here to talk to you today about the Pets for Life program, and it's a program that the Humane Society of the United States has been running now for about 4 years. Something that my team started just as I was taking over as vice president for the department that I work in at HSUS. And we've really learned so much over the last 4 years, and the program is dedicated to delivering services in underserved areas, because we're finding in the United States that as pet ownership has increased dramatically over the last few decades. In the 70s, there was about 63 million pets in homes. Today, there's over 164 million pet dogs and cats in homes across the United States. And the good news is that even though pet ownership continues to rise, our euthanasia rates have steadily been decreasing. About 40 years ago, we were euthanizing over 13 million dogs and cats every single year in the United States. And thanks to, in wide part, broad spaying and neutering becoming so much more acceptable and available through veterinarians across the country, euthanasia rates are down now to, actually I need to update this, it's down now around 3 million according to our best guess. It's not a guess, it's an estimate based on what we know of what's happening in shelters in the United States, though we also have work to do on how we collect our statistics nationally. And so we have made tremendous strides, and while we still have about 3 million pets euthanized, and that's 3 million too many, we have so many amazing agencies, including our own, that are continuing to work to get that to zero. We want to get to zero just as you guys do as well. Something that we've kind of uncovered along the way is that there are pockets in pretty much every community across the country where there are pets living with their families in poverty. And according to our estimates, it's about 23 million pets in poverty. And a lot of these communities have had zero engagement with us and have kind of been off the radar a bit. A lot of times those animals don't even end up in the animal shelter because they have no connection. And so as we've explored this and uncovered some of these communities, we're finding some challenges in those areas that we've decided to explore through the Pets for Life program. And part of this is really working to think outside of our shelter walls and make it a priority to really empower people. And this is really the philosophy that my entire department, not just our Pets for Life team, but all of the teams that I work with in companion animals at HSUS really embody. That our goal, and I think we all share this same goal, is that we want to empower people in all communities, every community in our states, our countries, to keep companion animals healthy and happy throughout their lives. That as we get closer and closer to zero and we're not overwhelmed as much with the animals in the shelter, it's now incumbent upon us to find where are those animals perhaps still suffering or needing service within the community. It's not enough just to end shelter euthanasia. So Pets for Life, what this program is, just to give you kind of a brief summary, and we'll go into a little more detail in the time we have together this morning. It's a community-based outreach program, and I have staff in 4 cities, Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, across the United States, that are actually in certain sectors. We don't cover the entire city, so I'll get into that a little bit too, because that would be huge. But we find those underserved populations within each of those cities in which we really embed ourselves. So I have 3 staff in each of those communities every day working with those communities. But the bigger part of the program is those cities have really served for us as kind of a learning ground. We track every piece of information, every person we talk to, every pet we meet, whether or not we provide assistance or not. And from that, we've really learned how to perfect this approach to deliver services in some of these underserved areas. And so we have worked, thankfully, with PetSmart Charities and others. PetSmart is a big super pet store in the United States, and they have a foundation, and through some of their support, we have been able to provide training and mentorship to now 30 communities to help other organizations, shelters, rescue groups, spay-neuter clinics, to go out and do the same work that we're trying to do in our 4 communities. And as a result, we're collecting all of their information too. And so I have some results from that I'd like to share with you today to hopefully give you some ideas about ways you might be able to engage areas of your communities that you may not have engaged yet. So it's really not just about doing the hands-on work, but Pets for Life for our team is really about a philosophy. And it's about a philosophy of approaching people where they are and accepting them for where they are and who they are, and then working with them without judgment to help get them what they need and help them break down the barriers that are preventing them from getting services for their companion animals. So this is what the map looks like in the United States of where the program is operating currently. And we're just about to add some more cities, but the green dots are the communities that we staff with the Humane Society of the United States. And then the red stars are all the communities that have partnered with us, organizations that are doing this work themselves in their community, and we all work together to share what we're learning and track all of our data together. So what does it mean for pets to live in poverty? In the United States, it's currently $24,250 for a family of 4. And that, I think, if I did my math correctly, it'd be 32,276 Australian dollars. So for a family of 4 to subsist on that is not always easy. About the systemically poor, meaning like it's a kind of generational poverty, not just somebody fell on hard times and is currently without a job and struggling a little bit. This is folks who just live continuously in this kind of a situation. Often there's a lot of housing difficulties. Certainly we know, and from what our friends with Peony were talking about, that we have issues overall with all pet owners in terms of renting with pets. In underserved communities, it gets even harder because oftentimes it's a much more loose landlord situation. And oftentimes folks in these underserved communities have higher rates of pet ownership than the general population, mostly because the animals are often unsterilized and continuing to breed. And they're really considered animal service resource deserts, that they have little or no access to services. And so just to give you an example of kind of why the $24,000 for a poverty rate is a real challenge. So for a family of 4, according to the U.S. guidelines, they put out based on these different types of communities. Here, it's maybe hard to see for you, but there's rural, kind of a moderate cost city, and then a high cost city like San Francisco. And this part that I'm circling here in red shows you what is truly needed as an annual income for people in those areas. So even in a rural community, you would need $37,162 to meet your basic needs. But again, as I showed you, folks are making about $24,000. So you can see why sometimes the care for pets takes a back seat. And this is what it looks like in some of these underserved areas. This is the city of Atlanta, where we have some of our staff. And the dots that you see on the map are service providers of some sort, veterinarians, spay-neuter clinics, and pet food supply stores, where you would go normally to get all of your stuff. And then the pink area you see, that is what we call it, the blob is what we call it. But what that is those are the zip codes we've identified as being the most underserved. So what we do is a community assessment in every community we work with, where we overlay the socio-demographic information like annual income, all the census data. So like race, age groups, all of those kinds of information, and then overlap that with where all the services are located. And in really every city that we've ever worked in, even some of the smaller rural communities, this blob appears where there aren't services. And even though, like, it's a city of Atlanta, I mean, this is a big area, but for most of us, you wouldn't think it'd be that hard to just drive from Asheville Heights over to one of those service areas. But folks who live in these communities oftentimes rely on public transportation, or maybe don't have consistent or reliable transportation. So for them to get their, Staffordshire Terrier or their German Shepherd over to a service provider there, even if they could afford it, is really challenging, and it's a big barrier for them to be able to provide that kind of support. So we zero in on these very specific areas and deliver services on a regular basis, which I'm going to tell you more about. And so what does it look like within that blob that I told you about? What we find in the United States is that of owned animals, of owned dogs and cats, about 87% are sterilized. That's huge. Generally, 87% are sterilized. But in these underserved areas, in the more than 30 communities we're working in, we are consistently finding, when we do our community assessment to identify the most underserved areas, that we are finding consistently about 91% are not sterilized. So it's the complete inverse in these kind of little pocket areas within a different community. And what we have found too, in addition to not having sterilization or desexing, 76% have never seen a veterinarian. And usually if they have seen a veterinarian, it's usually for an emergency situation, not preventative care. And most of the clients, 88%, have never contacted the shelter or animal control. Or if they have, if they've had interaction at all with the animal control or shelter, sometimes it's often not a positive interaction, someone's pet being taken away or something like that. So there's not necessarily either an understanding of what services are able to be provided by local shelters and animal control, or there's perhaps a negative perception of those services. So when we talk about people who live in these communities, a lot of times, at least when we were first starting out, and we were doing this work, we found that there's a lot of kind of assumptions and really judgments that even some of us have made about people who live in underserved communities. And I kind of want to challenge that a little bit today and challenge you to think about that. One of the main things we've always heard is if you can't afford a pet, you just shouldn't have one, right? But how many of us, me, adopted pets in college when I had zero money and I was way in debt? And, how do we make those judgments about people? I had no right adopting a pet, and I did it anyway. People in low-income communities don't take good care of their pets. They probably don't love them as much. Well, I think I'll show you that's false. And those people are opposed to desexing. A lot of times, at least in the United States, some of the communities that are the most underserved also tend to be of a different nationality. Like in Los Angeles, the audience we serve and the clients we work with are primarily Latino. And so there's been a lot of judgment over the years, people assuming Latino communities don't believe in spaying and neutering. And we find that is just not true when we actually get in there and start really talking to people with respect and compassion. And the judgment that maybe because a person looks a certain way, that he or she probably doesn't take care of their pet. And we all make judgments. You're probably judging me right now, and that's okay. I mean, we all do that. That's just human nature. But I think we have to at least be aware of it and start to try to overcome some of that and try to be a little bit more compassionate to our fellow human man. So I just want to play a little game, and this is a game we do in the US when we speak at these conferences, and I'm hoping it goes over the same here. I have a feeling there'll be similar perceptions. So I'm going to show you a picture of a person, and then I want you don't say it out loud, just think in your head, what kind of pet do I think this person would have? Okay, does everybody understand the game? Okay. All right, here's the first picture. So what kind of pet do you think he might have? Bing. You all thought cat, didn't you? So did I. And look at those little like study things on his harness. That's a tough looking dog. I love those outfits, aren't they great? And notice the little, the cute little leash hold, what am I trying to say? The handle of his leash, it's polka dotted pink. I just love that. So you guys seem to, just based on your giggles, you know, we all kind of assume what people are going to have as pets. And I just want to say sometimes you can't judge a book by its cover. And to prove this point, I just want to tell you briefly a story about Terry Wills. This is Terry and one of his dogs, and I had this great pleasure of meeting Terry last year when our team was mentoring the city of Dallas in how to do this program. And they had their first outreach event, and so our team goes in and helps them to make sure their outreach event goes really well, which I'll show you a little more about in a minute. But at the outreach events, people will line up and wait in line to get free vaccinations and services for their pet. And sometimes it can, I mean, we'll have hundreds of people come out, and sometimes they can wait as many as 4 hours or more to get the services that they need, just because there's a volume of people. And for dogs like Terry's dog, his dog is a little bit reactive, and he didn't handle the line very well. And so we'll have a space for, you know, we kind of spread those dogs out so that they can have a little more buffer room. And my job that day was to be the runner for the reactive dogs. So I would make sure I would take care of the people who had to stand on the side and couldn't stand in line, and make sure that they got the services that they needed. And Terry was one of those guys. And he was so funny because he told me he had, at first I asked him if it was okay to approach his dog. He's like, oh, she's so friendly, come say hi. And he even has like gold teeth, and he was so cool. And he was like, you know, I've got 5 dogs at home, and I'm going to bring them all up. And he, one by one, he brought each of his dogs throughout the day. I mean, this was like a 4 or 5 hour ordeal. He brought each of his dogs. And he was so happy and excited. But he is the kind of guy, like most folks, at least in the U.S., might look at him and say, okay, are you a dog fighter? You know, to be honest. And he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And at the end of the 4 or 5 hours, I finally gave him the last of all his paperwork, saying, here, okay, here's your microchip numbers, here's your licensing, whatever we gave out that day, I can't recall. And I was handing it to him because he had been so patient. I thanked him. And by the way, the last dog he brought up was a Pomeranian. And he was holding the Pomeranian, and I'm handing him the paperwork, and I see just like tears start coming down his face. And first I was like, what is going on? And he said, and I still get goosebumps because it made me cry too, but he was like, I feel so blessed. He's like, I love my dogs so much, but I couldn't do this for my dogs. And he's like, it means so much to me that someone came out here and helped us get what we need. And he was just so grateful and thankful. This big, burly, tough-looking guy burst into tears. So that, to me, is a really important reminder of the human connection, and that people love their pets no matter where they live or what services they have available to them. And it's incumbent upon us as the animal welfare professionals to see how we can help deliver it better. So I want to play a brief video that gives you kind of an overview of the Pets for Life program, in terms of both our outreach events and the door-to-door approach. The door-to-door work, where we literally, within that blob that we mentioned, identify where we're going to start in terms of what blocks, even down to the blocks we're going to work on, and start knocking on doors and talking to people. And we use a very methodical process to try to lock the block and make sure we're really blanketing communities. So let me see if I can figure out how to play that. How do are you able to do that, Glenn? Click it? Okay, there we go.
We all love our animals, so to finally have some, to have a program here actually willing to help out the community and their pets is just awesome.
I love it.
Have you heard about the free event that we're having? You have any animals at home?
We're with the Humane Society of the United States Pets for Life, so our goal is to give people the resources that they need to hold on to their pets and keep them healthy.
He was so cute, but it's just that I couldn't do the right things for him. Something
Pets for Life really emphasizes the human component in animal welfare. We do an in-depth community assessment which takes into consideration shelter numbers and euthanasia numbers, but also economic numbers. We really try to central in on the community that's in the most need.
All right. Thank you. You're welcome. We're giving away free shots, free cat food, free dog food, free spay and neuter. Yep.
All my friends are cat love. They got cats.
It helps because right now money is tight.
And this Pets for Life program was just an idea in our minds. We knew it was going to be something really special, but we didn't know just how special it would be.
Peace, and thank you for the foreleg. All right now. All right, bud. Peace.
Pets for Life is a program all about being proactive instead of reactive. We're going to stop dogs and cats from coming to the shelter. We're going to stop the suffering that's going on in the communities through this program.
The best thing about Pets for Life is really connecting with the community.
There's your baby.
And realizing that a lot of the stereotypes we see and we think about or we hear through the media are not true.
Miss Betty? Miss Betty is an animal lover. She's probably been an animal lover her whole life, and she's probably never met other people who love animals as much as she does.
We were all here to train because they're going to start a program like this in their cities.
Now she's this ambassador. She's an amazing spokesperson on these important issues, so she can now deliver, and she actively delivers this information to people in her community, so that helps to spread the message.
I think if it's what we know, we spread it around.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do.
They gotta find Miss Betty in all their cities.
When you help people that you know that really love their pets, it's satisfaction is very rewarding.
Oh yeah, here we are.
That's my pumpkin right here.
A lot of people love it. They're excited that it's actually free. They always ask us what's the catch?
What's the catch?
There is no catch to the program. We've been asked how much everything costs and we say free.
Everything we provide is free, and there are no strings attached.
What's the catch? No catch. It's free.
There is no catch.
I always say the only catch is just to continue to love your animal, and we'll continue to be here to help you do that.
Getting ready for our huge outreach event. As you can see, it's 7:58 in the morning. We don't start till 10 a.m. and look at the line already. It is incredible.
This is a good showing, right? Looks like a football field out here.
Really, really like the program. Me being from this community, I definitely see the impact that it's making on everyone around.
Is anyone that bad?
We want to get to the pet owners before they get to the shelter, before the pets need rescue, and try to keep them in the homes and really kind of elevate the bond between people and pets.
So happy that I have the dog food. Spots too. Look at the dog. She know what it is. You like this? Look, she know what it is. Thank you so much for the dog food. It'll really help.
That's amazing how you guys can do this for us.
I loved it. They're neutered, they sprayed, they got microchip, they got everything.
Nails done,
From nails done, hair done, everything done.
Yes.
As soon as she get old enough, we're going to get her spayed and neutered. Yes. Yes.
What we have forgotten is that by helping the pets, we actually do help the people, because they care about their pets and they want to have the best life for them and their pets together. We talk a lot in the Pets for Life program about general wellness and about getting animals spayed and neutered. But the key to it is the relationship building. And from building relationships and from building trust with people in these communities, the spay and neuters come.
So that just kind of gives you a visual of what the program looks like on the ground. And one of the things that we have found with this program is, and actually I want to go back a little bit because I want to talk about this for a second, is that you heard in the video that we offer the services for free. And I know that tends to be a concern or barrier for other organizations to think about, but I'll tell you, in the 30 plus communities we're working with, we're overcoming that, through some grants, but also I think some of it is so important to do the targeting work of this program that most of you probably do it for some of your clients, or some of the folks come to your organizations, offer some free spay neuter, maybe for cats or for folks who otherwise couldn't get them. So what we're doing with the program is really targeting very specific neighborhoods and going in and removing every barrier to spay neuter, because we know 91% of the pets aren't yet sterilized, and we're delivering those services specifically to those people. It's not a program that we are broadcasting on social media or putting in the newspaper. It's a door-to-door grassroots approach in the communities where we need to reach the people with the highest rates of unaltered pets and those who we know are not getting services another way. So what we're finding with the program is by doing this approach and getting in and building relationships, knocking on doors and offering periodic outreach events, we are converting most of the folks over to spay neuter. So it's a little bit hard to see. I don't know why they made this so light, but if you look at the first kind of column there, you can see 91% is where we started in terms of unsterilized or not desexed pets. Through the program, which I'll talk a little bit more about the process, we've converted 78% of them consistently in our communities to spay neuter, which then brings them up to an 87% sterilization rate for those neighborhoods, which matches what our national average is for spay neuter in the United States. So the goal is kind of to help these communities, empower the people who live there to increase what they provide for their companion animals. And if you look at the circle graph to the left, this is showing a little bit about how the program has grown, and we've gotten better at this the more we do it. In 2012, we converted 58%. In purple, the purple year 2013, 71, and by the end of last year, 78%. So it's like you get better at it the more you do it. Again, what I want to stress is identifying that focus area, identifying and doing the community assessment to figure out where are those hotspots in your own communities, and being strategic with your resources so that you can help provide and eliminate barriers for people who live there. And figuring out also what you can offer. I mean, we believe very firmly, at least in the program and any of the mentorship communities that do it with us, because it's a very targeted program, we require that the spay neuters be free, because even a small copay can be a barrier to getting that done for a lot of those folks. And we wanted to remove every barrier possible and see if we could make it work, and it does over and over again. But you can also share all kinds of other information, especially basic medical care in these communities is a huge issue and a challenge for people, mostly because they don't have the same amount of information that a lot of us take for granted. I mean, I can't tell you the number of pets that we've met who look a little skinny, and you talk to them, they're like, I'm feeding my dog, and they just are a little skinny. You find out they just needed to be dewormed, basic dewormer, but they just didn't know. And so when you share that information, then suddenly the dog is bouncing back and everything's great. So you just can't underestimate the small stuff. And one of the things I wanted to mention was kind of what our process looks like when we do these events, both through the outreach events, but also the door-to-door. We always offer the spay neuter, and we have conversations around spay neuter very non-judgmentally. It always starts with, hey, you have a beautiful cat, or tell me about your cat, and then just learning about them, and then starting to have those conversations. And they may not say yes on the first time, and they may not say yes on the 10th time, but we stay in those communities and they do say yes. And we we provide these vouchers. They're actually the size of in the US, a dollar bill. And we deliberately did that so it would feel kind of like somebody is getting money in a way, like that this is valuable, I guess. And that they're really not, in and of themselves, there's no value. It's just an opportunity for us to sign them up for spay neuter, and we say, hold on to this because everything you need to know, and you can get your spay neuter. And once they've told us yes, that they will spay or neuter their pets, then the onus is on us to ensure that that happens. And the team takes that very seriously. If someone doesn't follow through with getting their pet spayed or neutered, that's our fault, not theirs. And so we call everyone within 48 hours of having said yes to spay and neuter. And then they get a reminder call 24 to 48 hours before their appointment. And if their appointment is more than a few weeks out, they get called every week up until their appointment. And it makes a huge difference. We have like a 90% completion rate on using the vouchers, that 90% of the people do follow through because you have that ongoing contact. And as it gets closer, we found oftentimes folks will have questions, or they'll start to get nervous because they don't, they may be worried about their animal going under anesthesia or wondering if it's going to change their behavior. And by having the consistent touch points, it allows folks to get familiar and feel more confident and comfortable with what's about to happen. So that's the basics of how we do that spay-neuter process. And some of what we have found with doing this work is at first, kind of allowing yourself to maybe be a little uncomfortable going into a neighborhood you've never been in before. Something that we get asked a lot because, as you can even see from the photo, at least like in Philadelphia, a lot of the folks we work with it's a very predominantly African-American community, and in Los Angeles, as I mentioned, it's heavily Latino. And we weren't, at first there's always that hesitation of, well, I don't look like the people in the neighborhood, I'm not from that neighborhood, am I gonna be seen as an outsider, or will people accept me? And over again, it doesn't matter. If you go in and you are authentic and you are kind, you will make a difference and people will accept you. And that is just the way it works, human nature. So we really want to focus on the clients and the people that we're trying to interact with and have positive interactions with them. And one of the key points too is to not make promises that you can't keep. So it's a lot of times in these communities, the underserved areas, there's been other social services or organizations perhaps that have come in and offered or said, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and haven't followed through. And so the consistency and the follow through becomes really important. A lot of underserved areas are used to being let down. And so we found that having a consistent presence and never promising more than we can actually do. And there's a lot we can't do. We don't do in-depth medical. Our budget will never allow that. I mean, our goal is to provide the basics and help with spaying and neutering, but we can't do elaborate surgeries. And so we don't make promises that we can't keep. And you saw in the video a little bit about Miss Betty. She was the one sitting on the porch with her little pink outfitted chihuahuas. One thing I would say that has been so rewarding about this program is finding the ambassadors. And Miss Betty is truly one. She's in Philadelphia. And we actually gave her an award at our big conference this year because she has been amazing. Not only did she engage with the program and she wanted to get her pet spayed and neutered, and she did. She's become like the crazy, like getting everyone on board with spay and neuter in her community. And she's influential and powerful in her community, and she's really good at it. And this is Arthur. Sadly, Arthur passed away last year, but he was in Chicago with our team. They met him while they were doing outreach. In Chicago, he is in his neighborhood in North Lawndale. He was the cat man. That's what everyone called him. And I'm a crazy cat lady, I will admit it. He rivals me in a major way. He was amazing. Like, he would go out after dark. He would trap cats in the middle of the night if he needed to. He was living in a subletted apartment. He built like cat trees out of boxes and made toys out of like old cigarette packs and stuff like that. I mean, he just pampered all the cats in the community, and he was a huge help to us. We provided the spay neuter vouchers, but he did a lot of the legwork. And so it was great to see the community embracing and stepping up as leaders in their own communities to make a difference for the pets who live there. So a couple of final thoughts on this in terms of keys to success is, again, building that community presence is key. And one thing I do want to talk about is not taking people's pets. And I know, Todd's going to talk about animal control after this, which will be great because I think it'll help dive into that a little further in terms of how to handle some of this. But one of our tenets with the Pets for Life program is, if there's truly a real cruelty situation, and it's rare, you would find that in these areas, but if there is, then deal with that separately. But we don't ever just say, well, I think that dog on the chain would be better off rehomed. We never do that. Instead, we work with that family very compassionately and without judgment and try to make improvements. And oftentimes we're very successful at it. But if you start to just find that you take animals away from people when you're doing this type of work, it erodes that trust you're trying to build, and people will become very concerned and worried about what you're doing. And keep in mind that community's perspective. They may not have the same experiences that all of us have had. And the last thing, which is a really important tenet for us, is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Do what you can, for one thing, and don't worry about it being perfect. Just be real and honest and do what you can. But also, the same goes for the people you're serving in terms of, their situation may not be perfect, but that's okay. What can we do to make it better today? And one of my last things I wanted to share with you is just a brief clip of one of our clients. This is Pat and her cat, OG, and OG stands for Original Gangster, but which I love. So I just thought you might enjoy hearing directly from one of the clients we work with.
My husband went off, him and his brother. I got a phone call saying, I got a surprise for you. Because I grew up with all type of animals, lizards, this, that, and the other, dog, cat. And I said, okay. So my brother-in-law made it first. He opened up his jacket, little bitty something. We could hold OG in one hand. Just a little tiny head and ears. Okay, but he was a terrorizer, right? What you talking about? He chewed up shoes. We had to pay for blinds because he tore up every blind in the apartment. Okay, and then we got him. And he just started getting used to us and everything, because he was a baby. We learned his ways and everything. And he's a big sporty cat. So he's a tabby cat. We didn't know that. He's a tabby cat.
What does OG bring to your life?
Some of everything. Unconditional love. Just joy.
What are you feeling right now just looking at him?
He's that big old handsome something with that big nose, and I love him, and he loves my mom.
So those are the kinds of interactions that we live for, right? We just love that. So on a final note, I think I've drilled this as hard as I can today, but helping animals really does mean helping people, and that the human suffering, animal suffering, and communities are very intertwined. And that regardless of where people live or what their circumstances are, they really do love their animals, and we should be trying to do everything we can to help nurture that. So on a final note, I'll just mention that if you have an interest in learning more about this approach or the program, we do have tools available. We have our community outreach toolkit, actually. These were far too big to bring one for everyone on the plane, just so you know. But it's very comprehensive, and it goes through every aspect of the program. And oops, this isn't the right thing. I grabbed the wrong thing. But we also have a data report that talks about the results of the program and how the nuts and bolts work. But the good news is you can just download these things for free online. We just want to share the information, share what we've learned, and hope it helps whatever you guys choose to do next with your own communities. So if you go to animalsheltering.org/pets for life, Everything about the program you can find there, including downloadable materials, videos, and whatever you would like to use. And that website, as well as the Humane Society of the United States' website, devoted to folks like you in the United States who are working in shelters and rescues. So in addition to Pets for Life, if you want to see what else we have to offer, we would love for you to take some time to just spend on this website, and we're redesigning it, so it's going to be even better in a few months. So I think that's really all I have for you today. I hope that was helpful and informational for helping you think a little differently about the communities that you're working in. And I look forward to hearing your questions later on at the break. Thank you.